trends in warehouse and e-grocery automation. Joining us today to speak about that, Colman Roche, Vice President, E-commerce and Retail at Swisslog. Colman, good to see you once again. Welcome.
Russell, thanks for having me.
Colman, I think it's fair to say that the trend has been for smaller order sizes for some time now. I guess my question to you would be, is that something that you see continuing in 2022? And if that is the case, what does that portend for warehouses? What do you say?
I think, Russell, the long-term trend has been for smaller order sizes, but COVID had some changes. People spent more time at home, they ordered more online, they ordered more frequently, and the characteristics of those orders changed. So the number of lines per order often went up. I think we're going to settle back into the long-term trends now. As people are spending more time away from home, a little early to tell, the pandemic isn't quite over yet, but the long-term trends will re-emerge. We'll see the people trending to order one or two items. Some of the things that Amazon has introduced may change a little bit of that, such as being able to pick a day to receive your order. People will respond to those types of things, and other companies, non-Amazon companies, will respond to that as well. So you may see a little bit of movement along the way, but I think the long-term trends will resume.
And warehouses then, how are they going to adapt? What must they do in order to continue to meet that challenge?
I think we'll see more automation. So with the long-term trends, the number of lines per order had been going down over a period of time, but they were changing at a faster rate than many companies were able to automate to take advantage of that. So we'll see more companies automating, compounded by labor availability and labor cost and those types of things. You may recall that some of the basics are, of course, pallets are the cheapest and easiest to move, cases are the second cheapest and easiest to move, and when you get into each picking, and of course, e-commerce order trends are all about each picking, they are the most expensive. So they're ripe for automation for many companies. Retailers who have been looking ahead and understanding where the environment is bringing them have been the first to automate. Then a second tier of companies, so to speak, have done some automation. And then another whole group of companies have been trying to figure out, are these trends truly long-term? What should I do with my business? They may have automated their IS systems, but now will move into automating their physical systems.
Now here's a question about whether a trend is something short-term or long-term. It's no secret that during the pandemic, clearly more and more people were doing their grocery shopping online, e-grocery shopping. Clearly that was a difficult hurdle for grocers to meet. So I guess the question is, where are we with that now? Are grocers progressing, and is this something that we're going to continue, assuming we ever get out of this COVID situation? What do you think?
I think the online grocery trend had started small. I mean, our first contract for micro-fulfillment centers was in 2018, well before COVID. However, the rate of adoption by consumers was quite low. So therefore grocers had a lot of time to think about what the impact is going to be on their business and what they were going to need to do operationally and then through their supply chain to support it. COVID, of course, as we know, changed all of that. There became a collision between the amount of time it takes to deploy automation, lead times have extended, and the need for grocers to really move quickly. So a lot of grocers put in manual micro-fulfillment centers, or they did manual dark stores. And a dark store is a grocery store that doesn't have any consumers. You have pickers going through and then home delivery from there. Those could be deployed quickly. That said, more and more grocers have been deploying pilots of automation because they understand that labor availability and so forth are items that will prevent their long-term growth. The predictions in the industry are that the present levels of adoption of online will increase over time. And a critical piece of that is If you have, the percentages vary, but if you have somewhere between 8 and 15% of a store's grocery are online, different parts of the store become negatively affected. The center of the store is the part that gets congested by carts that are getting in the way of ordinary consumers. If I go to the grocery store and pick my own groceries and go to an automated counter and pay for them, I'm the most profitable customer for that grocer. Grocers don't want to alienate those customers like me with carts, with having to trip over grocery store employees. And those employees, try as they might, are inefficient. In a warehouse, if you're laying out a warehouse, you lay it out to be as efficient as possible, even for manual processes. But grocery stores are not laid out for efficiency. They're laid out to allow consumers see as many items and do those impulse buys and those types of things. So inherently they're an inefficient environment. So more and more grocers are going down the road. We're really still in the early adopter stages. So that's why you're seeing a very slow number of automated micro-fulfillment centers, but the prediction is that curve will become a typical curve and then increase a lot over the next number of years.
Let me just stick with e-grocery for just a moment. If the science that we're hearing and reading about is true, the coronavirus may become something that is as expected and as stable as the flu. And each year we will simply get a shot to guard against it. It'll be something that we live with, so it'll be a normative situation. If that indeed is the case, then we are not looking for e-grocery sales to fall off, but to continue either as a stable growth or something that is going to increase. Is that correct?
It is, and that's partly, I think, let's say in future years, when there are flu epidemics and that, you'll probably see further increases in online adoption. But the big driver is that people have got over the hurdle of, will my produce be okay? The technologies we use handle things like produce very, very effectively. So you don't get bruising, for example, and that's super important to people. We handle all sorts of produce in the micro-fulfillment centers that we do, and our customers get consistently high ratings in customer satisfaction, which is really important for grocery companies. So we know the technology range can be harnessed for things that consumers are really sensitive about. You don't want your apples bruised just because they've been picked out of a automation instead of out of a cardboard box. As people have become more comfortable, the convenience factor. Buying patterns have changed. You can reorder at the click of a button those essentials that you may need. If you've got two kids, they're going to eat the same types of things week in, week out, for most meals. So people will order the same types of things over and over and over in the click of a button, but may go out to the grocery store and buy the stuff they want for a special Sunday dinner or occasions and what have you. So you're seeing a mixed model. People aren't going to become wholly online shoppers, and they're certainly not being wholly offline shoppers either. So you're seeing as much as 70% of people have tried online grocery shopping over the last 2 years. That will allow for a huge increase in adoption as we look forward.
Colman, let's turn to a much more global picture, if you will. I want to talk about a comprehensive view into our global inventory visibility. So where are we with that, and is that what do we need to do to increase that?
Well, Russell, I think that recent supply chain issues have really highlighted the need for global visibility into inventory levels. There are some companies that have been going down this road for some time, particularly the more sophisticated, strategic types of companies. I mean, we all know, we can look at retailers and so forth who are looking well down the road at their supply chain, at how goods move through their supply chain and so forth, and they tend to have a lot of visibility already. Most of the companies are, I don't want to say in catch-up mode, but certainly they're behind that particular curve. and understand that not only do you need to know, for example, what's in your stores at any one time, which are pretty hard to keep track of, but you also need to know in your regional distribution centers and your maybe national distribution centers, and then further back into manufacturing. There are a number of different software packages that deal with different nodes along the supply chain. One of the key things is bringing all that together. There's more and more demand for that type of functionality, which means that different types of software need to be able to talk to each other in a different way than they have before.
As we go forward, let's talk about what's driving, in your estimation, warehouse automation decisions. What would you say?
I think there's been two broad things that are driving warehouse automation decisions. One is the desire to get closer to consumers. And so part of that is you've got the storage aspect and the transportation aspect of everything when you're delivering to consumers. And to some extent, companies are taking a closer look at those holistically, because oftentimes in the past, companies would take a look at, if I want to reduce my labor costs in this particular facility, I'll put in some automation and so forth. As consumer power has increased and retailers, for example, have to adapt to that, they're looking at moving distribution nodes closer and closer to the customer. That also results in changes of transportation. So now you have to look at the whole picture and what that means. So that's one element. And then the other element is the cost of labor. It's been going up slowly since the 2008 recession, and we've all heard the political debates that go on about labor and about slow rates of wage increases and those types of things. But then on top of that, you've had the availability of labor change drastically over the last period of time. People reassessing how their relationship with work. And that has gone hand in hand with a rapid escalation in labor costs. Labor costs have been a huge driver in places like Europe and Japan for decades in terms of automation, and now the same is happening here. So you're seeing a vastly increasing desire to automate. Sometimes not just to get control of cost of labor, but also to reduce the need to have labor in large quantities as companies grow. Dealing with the availability of labor has become a strategic issue, and then the cost from the ROI point of view alongside that.
Colman, final question, just briefly, tell us something about Swisslog, what it's doing in its space to optimize the operations of its clientele, its customers. What would you say?
Well, we work with customers from the various earliest stages of, I have a problem, I want to solve it, or I'm thinking strategically and I want to go in a new direction. We work with them heavily with their data to try and understand what their business is doing, and then we have a variety of automation products, 10 different types of products that we make, from pallets all the way down to each type applications. So we have plenty of tools in the toolbox to be able to work with them and figure out what the optimal solutions are. The goal is that we help them over multiple years of time to be able to come up with solutions that give them the flexibility, because businesses are changing very rapidly right now.
A comprehensive tool set, to be sure. Colman, I know you're busy here at the Modex trade show, but you found time to speak with us. Thank you very much.
Russell, thank you very much for the opportunity.
That's Colman Roche with Swisslog, and speaking with us today about trends in warehouse and e-grocery automation. Thanks for watching.